Hi, everyone. All right, well, let's get started. I apologize for any background noise you might hear. I had to be in public because my power went out today. Because you never know in Nova Scotia any time of year, right? Okay, so thank you all for attending our second GeoTalks webinar series that GANS have been putting on to try and reach remotely into our professional lives to update you with the goings on of things in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes in general. Today, we have the excellent opportunity to have Jennifer Strang, who is a GIS analyst for Dalhousie University, is going to talk about her COVID-19 map that many of you probably have looked at over the preceding 3 months or so. Jennifer is a GIS analyst at Dalhousie. She's worked there since 2005, and she's a COGS grad as well. So a lot of people can identify with her from that point of view. Anyway, without further ado, I will introduce Jennifer. She's going to talk about visualizing COVID-19 data in Nova Scotia using Operations Dashboard. Jennifer, you want to take it away?
Sure. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you.
That's great, thanks. And I should also mention to everybody that this is being recorded. So if everyone could keep their videos off and themselves muted, you'll be able to find this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel coming up. Sorry about that. Sorry to step on your intro there, Jennifer.
Oh, that's okay. Can everybody see the presentation here? Just before I start. Okay, I'm not hearing otherwise.
No, I can't see it yet. Maybe other people can see it, but it's not popping up for me yet.
It isn't visible to me either.
No? Okay, thanks, Laura.
Okay, hold on. We'll see what we can do.
There we go. Now it's working.
Okay.
But
great.
we can see the presentation slides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I tried to show the other one, but okay.
I'm sure those would work. But if you press the little, probably the little, yeah, that one.
I will fix. Hopefully, we'll get this straightened out. Okay. So we're
Perfect. Thank you very much.
no problem. Okay. So thanks everybody for coming. Just to start off, I figured I better let everybody know I am absolutely no relation to Dr. Robert Strang, the Chief Medical Officer of Nova Scotia, which all of us have been hearing from on a regular basis. So no relation that I'm aware of. And also to let you know, I'm not expert on COVID, nor am I necessarily an expert on Operations Dashboard. I'm a user of GIS, and I particularly with the ARC tools, and was something I wanted to learn a little bit more about. So without further ado, one of the questions I was asked, so why am I doing this? Well, the obvious answer is COVID-19 is affecting everyone and everything and every aspect of our lives. So it seemed like an obvious choice of things to pick up when you're looking at that. I also wanted to know more. I found that the Provincial website had some issues. Now, I don't mean this as a criticism. In fairness, the province actually was out with data almost immediately. They recognized it was something that people were going to be interested in, and they did post their data that they had. But I was looking for a little bit more. So, and again, it's just another way to deal with the visualization. Neither is right or wrong, just a different way. So some of the issues I had is I found it really difficult to get some exact numbers within some of the cases. They would show percentages, or some of their graphs you could see, but you couldn't actually get the values for. You can only get the numbers for one day at a time. You couldn't go backwards. So that I found to be a little bit distracting, I guess. And it was missing some information of interest. Now, I should note, when I checked the website this morning, some of these issues, when I did this presentation, most of this was finished last week. And it turns out the province has updated their website as of today. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today, fortunately, I guess, from a data point of view, are no longer issues, but I'll point those out as we go. And the other big thing is right now, I'm sure like a lot of you, we're doing a lot of online learning, and operations dashboard was something I had seen. John Hopkins dashboard is basically everywhere. And it was something I hadn't tried before, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, but I wanted to deal with specifically Nova Scotia data. So the provincial site as it stood, this was June 2nd, I would have done this screen grab. You can see this is what it did look like. It still looks very similar to this, but you have a little more functionality now. You're able to see kind of the days, but you couldn't get exact values based on the scale that's here. You scroll down a little bit further, you're getting the information for one particular day. So again, this is June 1st, and you're able to see all of the numbers for June 1st, as well as a very general map showing the health authority zones and the numbers for that one day. And you scroll down a little bit farther, you're able to see the percentage of cases by age and by gender. So again, this is great, lots of good information there, but still there's some information I was hoping to see that wasn't there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Ultimately, this is what I've created. So some advantages to this is all on one screen, so there wasn't any scrolling that you had to do. It also allows you to click on any of the data. So any of the charts, you can click on individual numbers and get the values. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a date selector, and it will adjust the numbers for many of the little widget windows to that date. Okay, so you can see I've got a bit.ly shortcut down there. So if anybody wants to try it out, if you haven't already found it, please feel free to do so. So when I was doing this operations dashboard, I ran into a few issues with data and some other things. The first was the location that was given on that map was based on testing location and not on residence. Now I should note, as of today, they have changed that. So if you look at the map today, you'll notice it actually indicates that it's based on residence location, not testing. So they have changed the data they're giving us, which is a little problematic if you're doing studies over time, but hopefully going forward, actually having the residence information should be a lot more valuable. For my liking, it was just too general. So the map itself, the health authority zones were quite large. There's only 4 in all of Nova Scotia, so it was really difficult to see if there was any spatial patterns or anything like that. So the overall values weren't very specific, so you couldn't do some really any sort of detailed work with that, what they've given us so far. They've given you percentages and not actual values, and there were some rounding issues with this. So again, I argue this both ways. In fairness, I'd like to see both percentages and actual numbers, so you can kind of do what you wish. Percentages and rates and things are great for comparison purposes, but depending what you want to do, sometimes having the actual values are really important as well. Again, I'm sure the reason that a lot of this information is not being given out is for privacy issues. You've probably heard a lot about in Toronto when they gave community and neighborhood information out, there's a lot of concern about whether this would disadvantage some communities. So again, you do have to be aware of this. And I'm sure the province themselves would actually have more detailed information that they can do more detailed work on. But again, that's something we need to always be concerned about. One of the other issues, not so much for now, but perhaps for later studies, is the boundaries for the health authority zones actually don't match up with Statistics Canada data exactly. So a lot of places are very close or very similar, but not always. And this is important because Statistics Canada is basically got a lot of information about the population. So if you want to start finding out if there were certain communities or what the aspects of various areas were, whether it's income or anything else about the various communities that Sword and Stats can, it's going to be really difficult to do some comparisons with that. Another issue that I had is the changing of categories. So when they initially started giving out this data, so when I started recording, you'll notice that the age classifications, there's no data there. And that's because it changed about a week or a week and a half in. So that means going backwards and forwards, the data did become more detailed, which was good, but it just makes comparison going backwards very difficult. Again, also the issue of the residence versus testing location. So right now, my website has got two different sets of information. I'm trying to show it on the same map, and that's a bit distracting, and the numbers don't really make a lot of sense unless you understand what's happened there. And also there's been some language changes. For instance, as of today, they don't use the term number of recovered people. It's resolved issues. So again, I'm not quite sure what the difference between those two are. But again, it is a bit difficult when the language or the categories change if you want to start doing comparisons over time. Again, a lot of the data they were giving, they've given some raw numbers and they've given percentages, but if you want to compare to other areas, like how is Central Zone in Nova Scotia doing compared to some of those communities harder hit in the Toronto area or Montreal area, it's really difficult to do because there's not rates given. So if you look on my page, I've given rates. So I've calculated estimates on the population so I could calculate rates of infection that has happened. And there's also issues that the provincial numbers didn't match some of the calculated values that are in my tables. And I'm going to explain to you where my numbers come from. Now, this is obviously something that the province caught, and they've made some changes to that, and I'll kind of highlight this as we go along. But so here is just to show you an example. Here is an example of a news article that was released. You can see here it's saying that there were 626 Nova Scotians tested on Sunday. This would have been Sunday, March 31st. So again, 626 Nova Scotians tested. Okay. So when in the early days, they actually weren't giving the number of tested cases out. So what I've done is I wanted to calculate this myself, like I say, at the time. So the way I did this, I looked at the day before, so May 30th, okay, or pardon me, that's March 30th, pardon me. The number there was 1,056. The negative cases were 41,391, which the total cases would have been 42,447. If you do the same thing for the next day, you calculate the difference, I have 553. So as a general rule, my number of cases always was lower than what the province had given. So this is a concern I don't understand. It might have something to do with how they're calculating their numbers. If, for instance, they had to, if there was inconclusive tests, they had to retest, maybe they were getting counted twice. I'm not really sure. But again, there were some discrepancies. Also, for instance, the number of active cases. This past Sunday, on my spreadsheet, it was showing -2 active cases. The way I calculated active cases was the number of positive tests minus the recoveries minus the deaths. When I did that, I ended up with a value of -2 this past Sunday. Again, I don't understand. So I know there's some issues. Obviously, the province had realized there were some issues, and there were some work done on that. So, as I mentioned, when I came in on Monday looking for the data to put into my spreadsheet, this is what I found. So they realized that they needed to reconcile some of their data. It sounded like they were getting data from different sources, maybe at different times, and it was creating some problems within their data. If you go to the website now, some of these issues that I spoke about have been updated. And I mentioned residence versus testing locations. Pardon me, this first graph, you're actually now able to click on it and actually get values for the number of total tests as well as positive cases. So again, this is a definite improvement. So the province are aware of the issues and are working to correct them. So this will make the data much better going forward. So the second question I thought might be of interest is, how did I actually do this? Maybe operations dashboard are new to you as well. So I figured I'd give you a little bit of the basics. So what do you need to do your operations dashboard? Well, you do need an ARC Online account. You need publisher privileges on your account if you're going to be uploading your own data. And optionally, I used ARC Pro to deal with some of my maps to do it. But again, you don't need to do this. This would be your choice. Generally, how did I do it? Turns out, after you got into the swing of things, it wasn't too bad. I had created this spreadsheet that I was updating daily. I created a CSV, or a comma separated values file. It will accept Excel sheets, but like I say, I used a CSV. I uploaded the spreadsheet to ARC Online, or if you had data layers, you could update those. If you didn't have the data yourself, but was already published by somebody else, you need to know where that location would be. Then you needed to design your operations dashboard by adding the various widgets and setting your desired parameters. And then lastly, you could set actions. So in my case, I wanted to filter many of my widgets based on dates. So how did you go about doing that? I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about that. So here's an example of what my spreadsheet looks like. So you can see I've basically recorded all of the information that was on the provincial website. If you scrolled over some more, you'd see some additional columns where I've done some calculations about the number of active cases, the number of tests and things like that. From there, I went on to my ARC Online page. I made sure I was logged in. And I went to my content tab. Okay. I added an item from my computer. And I added that CSV file that we were just looking at. With everything that goes into ARC Online, you need to have tags that are associated with it so it can be found. So I input a couple of tags that were useful. You scroll down a little bit further, you can see locate features by. In my case, my spreadsheet doesn't have any specific locations. It's actually for Nova Scotia in general. So I included none, and then I scrolled down and hit the OK button. When I did that, it took a few minutes or a few seconds, and ultimately it created a hosted table, which is what you're seeing here. So now that I have my spreadsheet or my data uploaded, I needed to now create my operations dashboard. Again, how did I do that? I went to the content tab again, create a dashboard. You have to give it a name and some tags, as always with anything in online. You click OK, and you come up with this blank page. How do you add your widgets to make things a little more interesting? You click the add or the plus sign. And in this case, I'm going to add a serial chart just to show you kind of how it's done. So I clicked on serial chart, tells me to select a layer. There's nothing in my dashboard currently loaded, so I'm going to select a layer. You can see by default, it's going to my layers, and I'm going to select my COVID demo. That's that hosted table that I added. From there, it's giving you the options or parameters that you can adjust. So you can see the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my categories field. Going to be based on the features and specifically the date. Okay, so that's giving me what's along the bottom. What do I want to actually map? I want to map the new positive cases. Okay. I changed tabs on the side. So in this case, I've clicked on the series. So what do I want? Maybe I don't want a bar chart. Maybe I want a line chart instead. I want to adjust the color. You just scroll down a little bit farther. And then if I go to the general tab, I've entered a name. So just to be clear, this name is the widget name for my ability to figure out which widget I'm dealing with. The actual title is what's on the chart. Okay, you can see there's lots of other tabs you can play with to customize the way you want, but I'm not going to go through all of them. Just to give you a general idea, I click done. I only have one widget. It automatically takes up my entire screen. I'm going to show you one more. In this case, I'm going to show you a pie chart of the percentage male and female. Because I've already had the COVID demo table loaded, it automatically sees it. So this time, I have a few fewer tabs. My option of my categories is going to be based on fields and the percent female and percent male. So these are just columns that were in that CSV file that I loaded. Okay. Every time you add one, a new category field opens up below. I want to just draw your attention to what statistic it's showing right here. It's showing the average. So this would be the average value of all of the information over every day that was added. Okay. We're hopefully going to change this, and I'll talk to you about how to do that. Click the done button, and now by default, it just divides the screen in half. Okay, thirdly, because I want to add a filter on it based on time, I think there's only two of the widgets that will allow you to do that, and that's the header and the side panel. I'm going to opt for the header. I'm going to accept all the defaults and just hit done, and you can see it just appears at the top. Now with any of these widgets, if you hover on them, the top left corner will actually highlight with a little blue line. If you click on it, you'll see the options that are there. So in this case, when I hovered over the header, I'm going to opt to add a date selector. It opens up a new screen. I decided I wanted a date picker so that it would have a calendar. I'm going to start off with a fixed date. And you can see here, I'm picking June the 2nd. Now this is important because my data that I loaded actually only goes to the 1st, okay? So in theory, you shouldn't see anything appear in that screen if it's linked. Once I hit done, although it says June 2nd in the top left or in the top right corner, you'll notice there's still data showing. Right now, that date picker is not tied to the data or the widgets below. How do you do that? Well, it turns out that's pretty easy too. So if I hover over my date picker, the little configure option opens up for me. I'm going to click on configure. I'm going to the actions. What do I want to do when somebody picks a date? I clicked add target. I want to deal with the pie chart. And I basically want to filter the pie chart based on the date. Remember, I've got the average selected, but because I'm only using one date and the date is only one per day, the average is actually the value that's in the table. Click done. And you'll notice now that there's nothing in the demo dashboard as far as the pie chart. If I change the date to the 1st, it actually gives me the values from the 1st. So that was pretty quick overview of how to add some very basic widgets. If you want to learn how to do this, some tips I can give you that I've run into. You can copy existing dashboards. So if you see a dashboard that you like that's out there that's really cool, you can use theirs as a template. There's a how-to within the Esri help, and I'll direct that to you towards the end of the session. Be a bit careful of the time fields. Because ARC Online is an online environment visible to everyone, potentially, when you upload data, it automatically puts the time to UTC time. So when I had my data, I only had date set. So it, by default, put in a time of midnight. When it was uploaded online, it basically changed my data to 4 hours earlier, which was the day before. So in order to combat that, I changed my incoming data added a time of noon, and then when the time went back in UTC, the day was still the same. Again, another thing to watch out for is permissions. By default, anything that you create in ARC Online is only open to you. If you want to share, you have to choose who you're going to share it with. But you need to make sure you have to share all the pieces. So in my case, I would have to share not only the dashboard, but the hosted table that I added as well. Okay. Again, like I say, I'm certainly no expert in this. I learned a lot of this by watching some videos and doing some online training, and here's what I found. So feel free to take a look at some of these. Many of them are free to everybody. Some of them are free depending on the type of license that you have. As far as the data resources, the data that I got on the COVID came from the Provincial website, and it's listed there. In order to calculate rates, I needed to get some population information, and from Statistics Canada, and I was able to get the boundaries and the actual values from these two sites. So with that, thanks a lot for listening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a very interesting talk.
Great. I hope you liked it.
I know I have a question. Where was your data mainly coming from? Was it the government that was handing the data to you, or were you having to source it yourself from the hospitals?
No, I was literally pulling it from their website, that one web page I was showing you. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, very neat. So that is very curious as to why their numbers might be a little bit different from your numbers.
Yeah, so I don't understand. I think my logic was sound, but I'm not sure. I'm really kind of confused by it all, but yeah. But like I say, the province obviously saw some of those issues and they've gone about reconciling their data. So I think that was some of the issues that was happening at the beginning of the week.
Right. Yeah, sure, for sure. We have a question from the chat. It says, "This is great, Jennifer." It's from Natalie St. Jacques. Have you heard from NSHA or DH&W for possible use of your dashboard in the future?
No, I haven't heard from anyone. If they're interested in it, they are certainly welcome to contact me. I'd certainly share whatever knowledge I have.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, I know that in the early days of the COVID pandemic, I was checking that Johns Hopkins map pretty much daily or more than that. So once the Nova Scotia one came up, I was checking that even more frequently. So it's really quite an honor to be able to talk to the person that made it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's very, very informative. It's addicting. Say it that way. Yeah, wonderful. Great. Well, if everybody can maybe take themselves off of mute for a moment so we can give Jennifer a hand, a remote hand, that would be very, very wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for the opportunity.
No problem. All right.
So if anybody has any question, feel free to contact me.
Definitely. Can I get you to stop sharing your screen for a moment, and I'll pop up the finale screen.
Okay.
And of course, if anybody does have questions, now's the time. Great.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, ma'am, in the pie chart, you have mentioned average data is taken for every day. Does it for only Nova Scotia or the whole Canada?
No, the data is only from the Nova Scotia provincial site. So the data would have been the average of all of the days since I had started recording, which I think was April 13th. You could have picked other options there, counts or minimums or things like that, but I left it at average. But just to be aware that it was the average of the data that was in the table that was hosted.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. So we started putting these on every week, but we are going to scale that back to every 2 weeks so that more people can make it to them essentially. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have Simon Sankey from East Point Engineering talking about scan to BIM to FM. So there'll be more information about that on our website if anyone is curious, or you can email info@gans.ca for more information. All right. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Jennifer, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just answering a question that came through on the chat window.
Oh,
So
yeah. Is that the one about the traffic?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Is there a way to monitor traffic?
Esri, on Arc Online, we'll show you how many hits, how many people are there. I don't, because I have administrative privileges, or you can check your own. It's hard to tell when you've got certain privilege. You can't see what other people that don't have the same level of privilege see as you do.
Right, for sure. But you can see that.
I can certainly, or whoever, certainly the administrator should be able to see if you can't see it yourself, but I think you probably can see it yourself for anything you post.
Right. So how popular has it been?
It's been pretty popular. So different days, I haven't checked it in a while, but I think the top day I had like 100 and some views on it. So yeah, it was pretty impressive.
That is very good for one day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So since I had beginning, I think it was last week I had checked it, and there was like 300 and some checks. It's not necessarily clear to me if, like, when I'm checking it to make sure the data is uploading properly and it looks normal the way I want it to look, whether that counts me or not, so there could be some this in there as well. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, that's like us with our YouTube channel. We monitor how many hits, but of course we share the video and go to the video ourselves. So we're unnaturally inflating that number.
Yeah. So I think that could be, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's very interesting. Thank you for that. I'll let Kaya know that we responded. Yeah, Dave.
Okay.
Can I just interrupt briefly?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Jennifer. Every time you look at the map, it tacks up another hit.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the view count as you're working through it. For instance, as you move and pan, I am not sure that also ups the view count. But I have
I know it used to certainly, but I don't know if they cleaned it up. But I don't do a whole lot of zooming in and zooming out on my map, or changing things, like, because it's just meant to be that map. Oh yeah, okay, it's looking the way I'd expect it to. I'm okay. So yeah.
So do you see view count of 458?
I am not online right now, but hold on. Okay. Because when I did this, I had to, I had to put the second screen was creating havoc when I tried to get everybody, so I had to disconnect. So hold on.
I just put the link in the chat.
Okay.
At the just a second ago.
Okay, there it is. Yeah.
And that's the view to the item. Anybody can look at that.
Okay, there you go. True enough. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like I say, when you have certain privileges, you don't necessarily see what other people see. So exactly. I'm a little stuck sometimes because of that.
When you sign in, when anyone else signs in, all that we get to see is overview and view dashboard, number of views, etc. When you sign in, you get a whole bunch more tabs.
Yeah, I do. And I say, because I have admin privileges, I get even more tabs than that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
Side hint, something I tell students, doesn't hurt to update your description, summary, terms of use, credits.
Yes.
But I'll just leave that for James to do.
Yeah, well, like I say, in fairness, I should update my own stuff. We should get us all to do that properly. But yeah, like I say, at first it was more for me. It wasn't meant for the whole world to see. There might be some people that might be interested in that. And then it kind of took on a little bit of life of their own. So.
Yep. Well, it is cool.
It is
Yeah.
cool. I mean, that John Hopkins one kind of revolutionized. I don't know. It really made the whole pandemic real, if that makes sense. It sounds
Yeah.
weird, but everything was just happening so far off. But being able to see that dashboard really made it like, it made it seem like it actually is an issue we should probably be paying attention to. So
Yeah, true enough. Like you, I kind of was a bit at that site as well. So but I thought, they've got that. I keep seeing these operation dashboard. I probably ought to learn something about it because, of course, at Dal, I'm sure it's much like Dave at COGS. Like people say, "Can we do that?" And I'm
mhm.
probably yeah, look into that.
Exactly.
My usual answer.
I get that a lot at my work now too. Like, I think we can. I'm gonna say yes, but I don't know how. But I'll figure it out and get back to you.
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly.
Yeah, that is this industry. Wonderful. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. I really do mean it. We really appreciate you coming out and sharing your work with us. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Candace, and good to talk to you, Dave. Great to meet you.
Thank you to both of you for doing all this. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
No
Dave.
problem.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye for now.